In this unit, we're going to be talking about conic sections. With that being said, we're going to be specifically looking at parabolas today. Now, a lot of people think of parabolas in terms of quadratics, which is good, but there's a special case with all of these conic sections. They're all, you technically all have a x squared and a y squared, or not necessarily always a y squared. But to kind of give you a brief overview, a conic section is when we have it's when we have two right cones on top of each other in which a plane is going to intersect them. So we're talking a little geometry here. When this plane intersects, and oh boy, that's quite the picture. The plane is going to intersect in these different conic sections. And specifically, like I said, we're going to be looking at parabolas. Now, you should have been given a formula sheet that has all of the different ones that we're going to be talking about throughout this unit. And I gave you some formulas. Those formulas are going to be useful for this next part because if you don't have a formula sheet, you're not really going to know what I'm talking about, and that's going to make a difference. Or you could look at your book. There's also all of that information, same information in your book. It's just I have it all in one spot to make it a little bit easier. Parabolas in terms of their graphs. So when we're looking at a graph of a parabola, we have our x and y axis, and then we actually have our U-shaped parabola. Okay, there is characteristics of this parabola that are important to learn. This point here, the lowest point, in this case I have it on my y-axis. This is what we call our vertex, which is in the form h comma k. There's also another point, which you normally don't see. This is the focus. The focus is a point that your parabola is quote unquote bending around. Okay, so a bend in around that point is going to be different if we're talking about an ellipse or if we're talking about this parabola in particular. But a focus is a good thing to mention. Now, the distance from the focus to the vertex is the same distance from the vertex to our line that's called the direct line. Okay, so we're going to call that distance P, and that distance is also P. This information, depending on what you are given, is going to be useful in order to determine the different ways to find out an equation of a parabola. Like I said, I'm not going to go through that whole formula sheet on all of those different, what all that information represents, but I did give you this so you kind of have a visualization here. Like I said, you will be given different information to find that equation. So for instance, first one, the vertex is at 6, 2, and my direct line is located at x equals 4. Now, realistically, there's two different sides of things. You have a parabola that's either opening up or down, or you have a parabola that's opening left and right. So looking at this, since this is an x equals, we know that our parabola is going to be opening left or right. So we're going to follow that column on our formula sheet in order to keep going with this information. Now, the vertex is given h comma k. The direct line, remember, is x equals h minus 1 over 4a. Okay, well from this I can then determine my a value in order to write my equation. So I have 4 equals 6 minus 1 over 4a. All I did was plug in my h into that formula and knowing that my direct line is 4. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this just algebraically. And we can see then that a is 1/8. I now can write the equation of my line, or of my parabola. So x equals 1/8, y minus 2 in parentheses squared plus 6. And that's just because I used my information about my parabolas in my formula sheet in order to write my equation. Now let's say that you're given a focus and a directs. So since the direct line is a y equals, this is going to be a parabola that opens up or down. So we're following that very left side of our formula sheet there. Now the big thing is we don't have an h and a k, so this kind of makes this a little bit more challenging, but not too much of a challenge. Now remember, going back to that graph, the distance between the focus and the directs is 2p. So if I cut that distance between them in half, I'm going to find that vertex. So the distance from my focus to my directs equals 3. So my vertex is going to be located halfway between there. So my vertex is now going to be located, since it's on the y, our y coordinate isn't going to, or our y coordinate, our x coordinate is not going to change. The only thing that will change will be our, the y. So we have 3, comma, and you're taking 4 minus 1.5 to get us to be located at 2.5. That's where our vertex is located. Well, now I've got enough information that I could figure out my a value based on the focus and the vertex, or I could use that alternative form in order to calculate my p value, which is that 1 over 4p. Same thing. I know that this is my p value is 1.5, so I can now write my equation. Y equals 1 over 4 times 1.5, x minus 3 squared plus 2.5. Now I don't know about you, but I need to simplify this a little bit further. So y equals 1 over 6, x minus 3 in parentheses squared plus 2.5. So using my information based on the graph, I was able to locate that vertex knowing that that distance was halfway between there. And last but not least, sometimes you will be given a parabola and told, you'll be given the picture of the parabola and then told how to find the equation. So switching over, notice I have a parabola here. I've got a couple points located. Knowing this is opening left, so I know that I'm going to follow that middle column there. My vertex is going to be my 0, 2. So this is my h and my k. And this is just a point, so this is just a point at x, y. But because I have my equation, I can go through and actually solve for this. So plug in my information. I have -6 equals a, -4 minus 2 squared plus 0. So -6 equals a times -6 squared plus 0. I don't really need the plus 0. A is going to equal -1/6. Okay, so my final equation is then x equals -1/6, x minus 2 in parentheses squared plus 0. Now, because I have this hidden, we can double check to make sure that we did this correctly. And you will notice, move some of this away. Ooh, forgot the y. I got 2 x's, so I didn't do that right. Kind of did it right. that I've got a y there. So my equation matches up. You're just using the different information in order to write your equation.